Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're very pleased to have you joining us today. I hope you've had an interesting day at the various booths and meeting other students and other hearing about some of the services and programs on campus. So I'm going to get started and we'll be talking about political science. I'm Professor Vandana Bhatia. I'm the undergraduate supervisor of the political science department and the programs that we offer in the undergraduate part of our department. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our department and our programs, and we have a couple of other people with us. Professor David Edinger, who is a professor of international relations and American and Canadian foreign policy. Professor Edinger is an award-winning teacher, and he's going to give you a taste of what world issues and studying international politics is all about at Carleton. And we also have Miss Sarah Laundrie. Sarah is the undergraduate program advisor. She's the person that knows everything that you need to know, and she's the one that can answer almost any question that you can come up with. And myself, as I said, I'm the undergraduate supervisor, and I work with Sarah, advising students and working on, making sure the program is meeting your needs and continues to be something that's interesting and useful for you as well. So I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to the department, and then I'll turn it over to Professor Edinger to talk a little bit about what studying political science is actually like. So, I mean, even a cursory glance at the news reveals that we're living in a really pivotal time for politics and public life. Globally, internationally, climate change, refugees and migration, security issues dominate the headlines. And of course, at home, the COVID pandemic has really shed light on how much or how intimately our lives are entwined with government and governance. Issues around relations with Indigenous peoples, elections, employment, poverty, all of these issues, all of these complex problems and challenges also present opportunities. And that's where people like you come in. If you're curious about the world, if you want to learn more about it and how to help influence what's going to come and how we're going to address these challenges, then studying political science, especially here at Carleton, is definitely the place for you. So our job is to encourage and help prepare students to become knowledgeable and to be curious about the world, to become engaged citizens, and to help to equip you to, be able to engage in a wide variety of careers and professions, and really, think about and address some of the challenges that we're facing. So over the next half an hour or so, we'll give you a glimpse of what the programs are like here at Carleton, what we do, and what you can expect from our programs going forward. So I've already introduced Professor Edinger. I'm going to turn it over to him, and he'll give you an overview of politics and what we study, and then I'll come back and talk to you about some of the more details of the program.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. My name is David Edinger, and I teach in the Department of Political Science at Carleton, and I like to focus on world politics, foreign policy. I'm really fascinated in the politics of disaster and crisis. It is extremely exciting, and it's a fun topic to think about and to talk about, even though it's extremely serious, of course. Hey, before we begin, for everybody out there in the chat room, if you can hear me, light it up with some exclamation marks. Let's see if there's life out there. Come on, folks. I know you can do it. All right, there we go. Excellent. I'm seeing it. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I teach as a faculty member, what you might take if you were to take my class next September, and a little bit about what politics actually is in the first place. So let me ask you all a question first, right? When you think of politics, what do you think of? In one word, drop it in there in the chat. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about politics itself? Now, recall that there's no wrong answer to any of this. Uh, this is a question that I often ask my students in first year classes on the very first day to get a sense of where they are all at in their mind, in their headspace. I see Alexa is writing down government. Of course, government. That is central to what we do when we study politics. We see problems, indeed, right? If we didn't have problems, or if we didn't have politics, maybe we wouldn't have problems, or vice versa. There's an interesting relationship at hand there. Oftentimes, I hear a lot about corruption. We hear policy coming from Noah. Selfishness, greed, some of these more cynical terms. Influence, Adam, really, really interesting. Yeah, I mean, politics in many ways is about how influence works. There's no shortage of correct answers to this, and so much about what we think about when we think about politics comes down to our first impulses. When I think of politics, political science, and the study of this topic, I think about power. Right? What is it? Where is it? Who has it? How it's used? And of course, who benefits? And in my estimation, and when I think about politics and when I teach politics, we can weave together all of these words that you find folks dropped into the chat. Yeah, government is the exercise of politics in a formal way to solve problems. Yes, Maya wrote power. We're looking to debate and we're looking to come to policy. There's leadership. There's also followership. Indeed, in my analysis, power weaves its way all the way through. And that is what I think we study as political scientists and as social scientists. And we've been doing it for 2,500 years, 3,000 years, going all the way back to the beginning, right? And we can be talking about Plato in a political philosophy class. We can be talking about Black Lives Matter in a current events course. We can talk about COP26 over there in Glasgow right now in an environmental politics class, elections in your Canadian politics class, or war and foreign policy in a class with me. Fundamentally, what we're talking about are variations on that theme of power. And now, you already heard why study politics and why study politics now. I couldn't think of a more interesting time to dive right into the study of politics. Yeah, the world is in a state of flux, and I don't think that's a cliche. And I think we're on, the precipice of major long-term transitions and transformations in our world that are going to have, cascading effects over the next generation or so. And it's going to influence everything, including the way we live our lives, as has been the case over the last year and a half or so. The challenge for us as students of politics is to unpack the world, take it apart, observe its component parts, and then make sense of it in an organized and rigorous way. Some of us like to stand back from the world and observe it analytically. Others like to jump in and get involved. Even others like to do a little bit of both. And all of these different approaches to politics is what you're going to get if you come to Carleton Political Science, where you will study government and parties and voters and the big ideas and the practice of politics, the politics of the economy. That's an important one. What are the forces that make up the economic world we live in? I focus on foreign policy and war and peace and sometimes cooperation, but oftentimes not cooperation. And underpinning all of that is the human implications, right? How it actually affects real people, which is something we always need to bear in mind. Now, let me give you a quick example of what you might get if you were to step into the classroom with me next September. My favorite class to teach is a big first year course on world politics. And I've designed it to be world politics in an age of crisis. And it's basically a big history of right now. All of these overlapping and mutually reinforcing kind of crises that characterize our world today need to be understood. And they can seem overwhelming at times when when you're scrolling through your news feeds and all of that. But when we step back and take a real kind of disciplined analytical look at things, we can see patterns, and in those patterns we can observe the solutions as well. Let me give you a quick taste. Yesterday in my class, me and about 50 other students were hanging out on Zoom talking about the politics of climate change. The causes, the solutions, the problems everywhere in between, the sources of influence, what policies we can write, and what governments can do. All of these themes that you are already anticipating in the chat. And all of these things are the determinants of what is going to help or hinder cooperation. And we're kind of all doing it in real time, right? Everybody at some point on their computer screens have, the speeches that are going on in Glasgow at COP26 right now, following along live. And it's really quite remarkable that we're studying politics at a time such as this one. And all along the way, you build skills. You develop skills in writing, in researching, in analysis, and ultimately, and this is important, persuasion. If you can be persuasive in politics or in any other field, boy, you are going to go very, very far indeed. That's the kind of thing that you're going to get in political science at Carleton University. I love it. I have tons of fun doing it, and perhaps I hope to see some of you all in the classroom around this time next year. So, with that, I'll hand it back over to Dr. Bhatia for a little bit more.
Great, thanks so much. That was, I think, it was a really, great way to introduce you to a lot of the primary themes that we study in politics. As Professor Edinger said, the issue of power sort of permeates so much of what we do. I teach public policy, and I also teach research methods. So some of the things that we talk about, certainly from a policy perspective, do engage issues of power and politics influence, as well as the power of persuasion. So using information, evidence in a way that is not just persuasive, but also presents things in a logical, comprehensible way that that links solutions to problems in ways that people perhaps may not have thought of themselves. So that's where folks like you come in with your new ideas and ways of thinking that are different and innovative. That's really where I think the exciting things happen. So let me tell you a little bit about our program. I'm going to share just a few slides. Here we go. And tell you a little bit about what we do and what you can expect here at Carleton. So we have 3 different programs at the undergraduate level. We offer a 4-year honors degree, a 3-year bachelor's degree, and you also can combine political science with another discipline for the 4-year combined honors degree. So with the BA honors, it's a 4-year program, 20 credits to graduate. So typically a full-time course load is 4 to 5 courses per term. And so you can finish that with a full-time course load, you can finish that program in 4 years. Of those 20 credits, just under half, 9 of them are in political science, and then the remaining 11 are electives, some of which can also be in politics, but most of which are in other programs, other specialties, to really kind of give you a breadth of knowledge about the world, not just political science, but a number of other areas that you can study, and I'll talk a little bit more about those in a bit. With a 3-year program, 15 credits, so a full course load again, 4 to 5 courses, but you'll do it in 3 years instead of the 4. Um, so in terms of tailoring the program, that's one of the real strengths of the programs that we offer. We have a faculty of 35 professors, and so there's a real breadth of knowledge and expertise and research that we can offer, and that is reflected in the um, 8 different specializations that you can choose from, or you can stay with a broad sort of general program in political science without having to choose a concentration. So you can see the most popular concentration amongst students is usually international relations. We also have real strength in Canadian politics, obviously being in Ottawa, studying Canadian politics, this is where it's at, and public policy and public affairs, of course. You can also tailor your program by adding other areas of study. So students can, so remember I talked about the 11 credits in non-political science courses. This is where you can actually sort of focus in a particular area, do a minor, which is usually about 4 of the 11 credits. That are not political science, and that gives you another sort of specialization in a different area of study. So students in our program often choose law or history. Those are the 2 most popular ones, but you can do a minor in so many different areas, and really tailor it to what your interests are. So if you want to learn German, you can learn German and study comparative politics and study German history alongside of that. So you can, again, really tailor it. Environmental studies is another popular area. The study the global South and development. Students often combine with African studies. So there's lots of ways to really tailor the program to really sort of make the most of the things that you're interested in, or to explore things that you haven't really, had a chance to. So when you get to your first year, there are 2 sort of core courses that are required of all students. One of them is the course that Professor Edinger teaches, the World Politics course. There's an introduction to democracy in theory and practice. And then we have a couple of other politics courses that you can choose to take, but you don't have to. But we do offer a few other first-year courses: gender, race, and political exclusion, the politics of migration. Um, so, you can add some political science courses and then add your elective courses in there. So this is where you can add your second language courses, do your electives, and work on that minor if that's what you choose to do. So your first year, or a typical timetable would look something like this. You can, the scheduling is quite flexible, so you can choose the courses and sections that fit your schedule. A lot of students do work part-time while they're full-time students, so being able to do that, and again, because we have a large department, we can offer more than one section of some of the more popular courses. So again, it adds that bit of flexibility. So you can see here in a typical schedule, you can usually schedule a day or 2 where you have no courses. You can use that to work on your reading and your assignments. And again, typically a first year course, or most courses are 2 hours of lecture, plus an hour of tutorial time each week. We also offer first year seminars. That's this one here: gender, race, and political exclusion. We offer 6 different first year seminars on special topics. These are small classes. They're more focused topics based on the research and expertise of the professor teaching it. And it gives first year students an opportunity to work in a small seminar setting and really build on some of the skills that you need to succeed in university. So you'll get a chance to work much more intensively on your writing, your research, communication skills, so that when you do get to the larger lecture classes, you've got this much more hands-on and intensive experience to draw from. Um, In addition to the coursework, there's a lot that Carleton has to offer in terms of enriching your degree, opportunities for getting some experiential, hands-on learning, learning new skills, putting some of your academics into practice. So co-op is one of the more popular programs. Co-op placements are available to political science students in a wide variety of government departments, especially at the federal level. Being in Ottawa, um, I would say the majority of our students do go to the federal government workplace for their internships. So we've had students placed in everything from foreign affairs to border security to research in the Library of Parliament, Indigenous and Northern Affairs. So there's, just about, it runs the entire gamut of the federal government. We also, being in Ottawa, have the advantage of being the headquarters for a lot of national non-governmental organizations, as well, of course, for embassies and private sector organizations that sometimes have their head offices here. So, the Canadian Medical Association, for example, we've had students doing placements there pretty regularly over the last few years. But we also have consulting firms and polling firms that work with government or for non-governmental agencies. Um, so there's lots of different opportunities through co-op. Co-op typically adds an extra year to your studies. So students can start their placements after they've completed their first 2 years. And typically students will do at least one placement in the summer and one or two of them during the regular school year, the academic year. So that adds about 1 to 2 terms of time onto your degree. So from a 4 year to 4.5 is typical. We also have international and domestic internship opportunities. These start in your second and third year too. So the university has relationships with several organizations and agencies that place students in internships virtually all around the world. And these internships can be with governments, again, with non-governmental organizations, international organizations, and domestically as well. So internships are for credit, whereas co-op is not for credit. You don't get sort of academic credit. Co-ops give you an opportunity to get paid work, whereas internships are not paid, but they do count towards your credits. So domestically, students do research or policy work for. We had a student doing an internship with the U.S. Embassy, with national think tanks, the CNIB. So there's lots of opportunities there, and these are tailored. Often students will find these internship opportunities themselves. So again, you can really do what interests you. You don't have to sort of fit yourself into what's available. International exchange is another really great thing that we offer at Carleton. Students can pursue the equivalent of a full-time program of study at a university or institution almost anywhere in the world. So Carleton has relationships with partner universities and in like, I think, over 100 different partner universities around the world. So you would pay tuition fees at Carleton, but while you're on exchange, you can earn credits at these other universities that count towards your degree here. So that's a great way to, hone a language if you're working on a second language. Again, get some experience, meet people, and just sort of expose yourself to different cultures and environments around the world. Research is another really important way of enriching your degree. Carleton has some great opportunities for undergraduate students to do research. We have a funded research program through the Faculty of Public Affairs where you can actually be awarded a research grant to do your own research over a summer term. We also have collaborative research projects with individual faculty members that can count towards academic credit, and also individual faculty members sometimes hire research assistants from amongst the undergraduate students as well. And being in Ottawa, community opportunities are, widely available, and all kinds of organizations. So students in our program have, I've seen students sort of become engaged with all kinds of organizations locally, everything from advocacy groups to political parties, advocacy groups that focus on alleviating homelessness and hunger, to working with young people, disadvantaged youth in the community, environmental groups, and of course, there's lots of campus clubs on campus as well. So the extracurriculars, there's the Canadian Political Science Student Society that organizes a model parliament every year. They also organize speaker series, social events, and networking opportunities. We have a UN society that organizes a model United Nations team every year, an International Relations Society. Again, these are all student-run groups that organize. They organize the International Relations Society organizes in-person and virtual visits with embassies around Ottawa. And of course, campus athletics and activities. We've had a number of varsity athletes come through our program, and they've been really very wonderful representatives of Carleton outside, abroad in the community, as volunteers, as athletes, and they've been very successful at balancing work and athletics, academics and athletics. So again, there's lots of ways to do much more than just attend classes and write papers. And we really encourage you to take as many of these opportunities as you can. So where does that all take you at the end of your degree? Well, there's, in our program, in the last 5 or so years, our statistics tell us that about 40% of our graduates go on to work in government as policy analysts or communications officers, research officers, foreign service officers, managers. We've had another 10 to 15% go on to do professional degrees. A lot of students are interested in pursuing law. So that's a very common thing for students to do after they graduate. And of course, master's degrees in politics and other programs as well. And then others go on to careers in journalism, in public relations, nonprofit organizations, and consulting agencies. So there's really, a political science degree really gives you a really broad array of skills and knowledge that prepares you to work in almost any field. Even in the private sector, people organizations, employers are looking for people with exactly the kinds of skills that Professor Edinger talked about, being able to communicate, persuade, write clearly, do research, and understand the world. And so those are the kinds of skills I think that will take you far, whether it's a career here in Ottawa or in Canada or abroad. And so we have graduates from our program literally all around the world, working in governments and international agencies, as well as local organizations. So I'm going to stop there. There are lots of ways to get in touch with us. You can reach out to me. You can check out our website. I've put the link in the chat as well. And now I'm going to stop talking so that you can ask your questions and tell us what you'd like to know. So
there were a couple of questions in the Q&A section that have been answered technically on the forum. It's good to say it out loud. One of the questions was, does our chosen concentration show up on the diploma? And the answer is yeah, which is pretty cool, right? So major political science, minor, French or whatever, concentration, international relations. That's pretty cool. You can be the ambassador to Paris someday. What's the difference between a regular course and a seminar course? Yeah, as Sarah wrote in, the seminar class is usually smaller and offered in the upper years. So basically a seminar class is a roundtable conversation led by basically the students with guidance from the faculty member. And a regular class is the lecture class, the kind of thing you might see on TV where you sit back in a lecture hall and listen to a delivered lecture. Some classes combine them both. In my first year class, students will listen to my lecture and then go off to small roundtable seminars led by teaching assistants, graduate student teaching assistants. There's also the first year seminars, which gives you gives you the taste of what you get in fourth year, but at the first year level, which is a really wonderful thing. I've taught at a bunch of universities, and this is the only one that does it in political science, and that is first-rate stuff. That's the gold standard of education, and it's wonderful that you will get that seminar experience in year one.
As I mentioned with the first year seminars, so the topics vary, and there's 6 different topics this year. So, you can you can take some first year seminars in other subject areas as well, but it's, a lot of the focus is really just kind of getting you ready and helping to make that transition from high school to university a little bit smoother, because it is a transition, right? You're going from an environment where you don't have a lot of flexibility, or there's always someone sort of telling you what to do and when you need to do it, whereas in university you're really making your own schedule and you're responsible for making sure you get the work done. We're not going to be there to sort of say, oh well, now you have to do this and then you do this. So it's really important to sort of have that transition, and it can be a challenge, but the university, Carleton, offers some really great resources to make that happen, to make it smoother, and that's where someone like Sarah comes in as well. She's the person you can talk to just about anything. If you're struggling, we can direct you to resources that you can get support from on campus, and that's my job as well. So, it's a really welcoming environment, and as we go forward, hopefully by the time you all start, all of this will be done face to face again, and we'll kind of be able to get back to, um, a more usual way of interacting, and less of the online.
Jason over there in the Q&A
Mhm.
asks, would you say that Carleton's political science program mostly focuses on Canadian politics? No, actually, there's a really, really
Yeah.
broad scope of interests. There's a lot on Canadian politics, as you might expect, but there is truly a worldwide remit to the kind of stuff that we study. And a lot of us professors work really hard to make sure that the content is really diverse, right? That it is representative of politics around the world in the true sense of that world, of that term. And if you follow the news, you know that there is a lot going on, and so Canadian politics, yes, is an area of expertise, but it is not the only area of expertise.
Yeah, we have professors who are experts in environmental politics, both domestically and internationally, people who specialize in migration, um, refugee migration, immigration policies, again, coming from different parts of the world. We've actually just hired someone that will start teaching next year, that looks at migration from, you know, uh, African countries to Canada, to North America. And so we have scholars that specialize in all kinds of areas. I mean, probably the two deepest strengths that we have as a department are in international relations and in Canadian politics. And we have some of the foremost Canadian politics scholars in the country with us, and of course, the number of people that we have that teach international relations is probably unparalleled, from any other department in the country.
Mhm.
Any other questions? All right, all of you, how many of you are not in Ottawa? You can just put your, oh, here's the chat. You're not, Jason's not in Ottawa. Kira's not in Ottawa. Chana, where are you guys from? Tell us where you are. Manila, wow. Whitby, Burlington. Is that London, Ontario, Zoe, or London, the UK? Or some other London? Peterborough, Barrie, Toronto. Oh, that's great. Have many of you had a chance to visit the Carleton campus? Oh, Italy, look at that. If you haven't had a chance to, if you do get a chance, definitely come out. Carleton is a beautiful campus, and you'll have. If you like the outdoors, there's lots to explore. There's there's paths on campus that will take you into green spaces. We're just across the river from a, a beautiful green space in Hogsback Falls, where one side is the river, the other side is the canal. So it's just a lovely campus,
Mhm.
and Ottawa's a great place as well. I mean, there's so much going on. Being a capital, but not being a big city, means that you get sort of the benefits of both worlds. And where we are, again, if you love the outdoors, there's so much to explore, and I think you'd really love being around here. And
Mhm.
if you do get a chance to visit, the campus tours, in-person campus tours are available, so you can have a look around, check out the residences, check out the campus, find out about the services that are offered here. So there's, the virtual tours are available as well, which I'm sure you've hopefully you've signed up for today. Um, but when you do get a chance to come and check us out on campus, definitely, if you can do that, definitely do that.
There's a question in the chat about language requirements. Does a language minor satisfy the language requirement?
Yes, it does. So the language requirement is if you don't already speak a second language, you can you basically you take one full credit worth of language courses. So a lot of the first year courses in languages at Carleton, some of them are full credit, so you only need to take that one course. So they provide you with an intensive introduction to Spanish or German or French. If you've studied in a different language through high school, you can provide us with documentation that demonstrates your fluency in that language, and we'll accept that, so you don't have to do additional credits. Um,
There's another question there. What are the requirements for co-op? Is it easier to get admitted to co-op during your first year or when applying for the major on OUAC?
So you can do both. I wouldn't say it's easier or harder one way or the other. So if you haven't made up your mind, or you changed your mind once you got here, you can apply. The requirements are based on your GPA. So you need to have I think it's a 9.0 GPA. So beyond that, you apply, and the requirements are whether you're coming from through the OUAC or through after your first year, you do a Co-op 1000 course. It's a non-credit course. It just prepares you, gets you working on your resume and cover letters and that sort of thing, and gets you out prepared for doing interviews with different employers. And then you can start your first work term in the summer following the completion of your second year. Or you can do it a bit later too if you like, but that's the first opportunity that you have to do co-op. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't think it makes any difference in terms of your ability to get into the program, whether you do it through OUAC or once you're here. Have you applied already, Jenna? Are you thinking about doing it once you get here? The GPA 12 point. Yes, we use the 12 point GPA.
John is saying, I'm thinking about applying through to co-op through OUAC.
Okay. Yeah, if you think you might like to do it, apply that way. Because if you don't lose anything by doing it that way, and once you get here, if you change your mind and decide you don't want to do it, you don't have to. But if you think you might, that's great too.
There are also other work study opportunities that are available. And the one that I'm thinking of here is art research assistant positions. Now, ordinarily,
Mhm.
these are sort of I don't want to say informal because they are formal, but you can get them by building relationships with professors over the years, such that when a professor has some research money to spend, oh, I know this really good, attentive, eager student. I might hire this person to do research for me. I'm in that situation right now. Right now,
Mhm.
I have two research assistants who are working for me on a project called "Surviving Trump: How Canada in its foreign policy survived the Trump years." And I have my two research assistants going through news articles over the past 4.5 years, building kind of a chronology of events about how Canada engaged diplomatically with the United States to make sure that we made it through those 4 years. And I can tell you it's really fascinating what they found, and they are loving it, and they can't believe that they get paid so well to do
I had
it.
a student this past summer that was awarded the Carleton University Research Opportunity Grant. She's in her fourth year, and she's thinking of applying to law next year as well. And she did a project looking at access to parental leave benefits for women from minority groups, especially women who may be in low income or self-employed types of positions. And so her project was really looking at, how do people access the benefits? Do they? How adequate are they? And so on. So again, it was a great opportunity for her to explore a topic that she was interested in, that she wants to pursue after, even after her degree is done. Kira has a question about applying between combined and a regular, sort of a single major. So I see that Sarah has answered the question. Um, so you can apply. Yeah, so when you're applying, you would indicate that you're applying to two majors, and the two majors that you're interested in. And each one may have slightly different requirements depending on which ones you're applying to. So it's possible that you would be accepted to both or to one and not the other. So it's sort of a two-track process when you're applying to two different majors. And there should be an indication on the application as to which ones you're applying to. You
Jason
can
has a
also
question. Oops. Go for it.
oh,
Go
sorry.
for it.
One more, just you can add a second major even once you get here. So your first year, it really doesn't matter if you're in a major or not for the most part. So once you're here, if you find yourself interested in doing a major, you can apply once you're here as well. And again, you go through the same sort of application process, just like the regular sort of entrance cycle that you're going through now. You would do that next year for the second major. So it's not too late to do it, even once you get here.
Hmm. Jason asks a cheeky question in the Q&A. Do you think I've memorized my students' names? And the answer is yeah. Eventually, you do. First year classes have sometimes hundreds of students in them, but over the
Yeah.
years, we develop relationships, and it's more than just memorizing their names. It's knowing who they are and what they like, and what sports team they follow, and what they like watching on TV, and all that kind of stuff. And that's what makes the university experience so great. That it's about relationships between people over a long period of time. So, yeah. I've memorized their names, even though I'm terrible with remembering names.
And that's one of the things I think as professors too that we really enjoy, right? It makes our time on campus and teaching so much more rewarding when we get to know you, not just your names, but as Professor Edinger said, who you are, what you like, what you want to do with your lives, beyond Carleton. It's the most rewarding part for me anyway. And I hear back from students after they graduate. They stay in touch. They tell us where they are, what they're doing, and it's really great to hear that. So
Yeah.
we do get to know people and learn names.
It
It's
is
a
a lifelong.
challenge.
It can be a lifelong relationship. One of
Yeah.
my one of the first students I ever taught as a professor. She recently was hired to be a professor herself in the UK after finishing her PhD and all that kind of stuff. So,
Oh,
now we are colleagues. We will see each other at conferences for the rest of our careers, and it's a wonderful thing.
yeah, that's right.
So, how does poli-sci compare with PAPM?
Yes, well, that's a good question. So PAPM is more of an interdisciplinary program. So if you're interested in a career in public service, um, that program is really tailored to people who want to do that. You would take a wider sort of breadth of courses, including management, economics, and political science and public policy. So it's a bit more applied. There are areas of specialization in that program, but in our program, you take a more disciplinary approach to politics. We are the political science department, so it gives you a particular lens on the issues. We do get some back and forth. In fact, we teach a number of courses that students in PAPM take. So a lot of their politics courses are courses that we teach, and we do have students kind of mostly coming from PAPM into our program. Sometimes they find it too restricted in terms of their interest. Others just it wasn't for them. So it really depends on your interests. I think both programs are very they're unique in their own ways. I think, again, as I said in my remarks earlier, with our program you can tailor it more to your interest, to a topic area, a particular concentration that fascinates you, where there's less scope for that in the PAPM program, just because there are more required courses and it's a bit more structured. Any other questions? I think Caitlin says we have a few more minutes to go.
Kira asks, what's the difference between the global north and global south in terms of study? Like, is the north the Western world and South Asia and Africa and all that kind of stuff? Great question. That is one of the questions that we discuss in all of that. Broadly speaking, the global north refers to wealthier, more industrialized, more developed countries, Europe, North America, Japan, and global south are, lower income, less developed, less industrialized countries of the world. Exactly where you draw the line between those two is a matter of real debate. And we have the comparative politics, because a comparative study of those politics in order to get at those sharper distinctions. And it allows us to view a world that is not necessarily one, it is many. And that diversity is really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm. And it's shifting, depending on the topic, depending on the issue, where that line comes down is very different. And those distinctions aren't as clear or obvious anymore. Maybe they were more so, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but increasingly it's not very clear what they are. So students kind of combine courses in comparative politics that include both North and South, or
Mm-hmm.
developing and developed or industrialized. So you see that, for example, with North American politics. That's a specialization we have with Mexico, the US, and Canada. The dividing lines between North and South aren't that clear, but the issues span those boundaries now in ways that maybe we hadn't sort of paid as much attention to in the past.
Yeah, and it's not an arbitrary distinction either. I mean, ask yourself a question, who is most responsible for climate change? The rich countries of Europe and North America, or the poor countries of the global south? And, based on your answer, who should take more responsibility for changing their policies towards climate change issues? It's, that is a question that is front and center over there in Scotland right now and in our policies. And it's not just a policy question, it's a really deeply ethical question as well. And, we're sort of running out of time to answer it, if you ask me.
That's right. in my courses, looking at public policies and the process of making policies, there's always been a divide in the literature between, developed industrialized countries and others. And increasingly, we're seeing that the theories that we use to think about policy making in some parts of the world don't apply in others, or that they can, in fact, be adapted. And more students coming in from other parts of the world into our courses really allows us to explore those areas that are complementary, or where we need to rethink our theories and concepts in different ways. I think we're okay. I think we are going to wrap up. And any other burning questions out there? If not, feel free to contact any of us by email. All of our information is on the website. We've posted some links in the chat, so feel free to reach out afterwards. I'm happy to sit down and have a chat with you individually. If you still have questions, we can set up an appointment. You can email, or we can do a Zoom call. Or if you're actually on campus sometime, let us know, and we'd be happy to meet with you there. So thank you very much for joining us today. It was a real pleasure to have you and to have your engagement and all of your questions. Take care and enjoy what's left of the weekend, and good luck as you move into sending in your applications and making some tough decisions. We hope to see you here with us in the fall next year. Goodbye.
Thank you.